Use the soft contact method on an avoidant. They'll be begging to come back. Have you ever watched someone you care about slowly pull away and felt completely powerless to stop it? One day they seemed close, engaged, and invested in the relationship, and the next they become distant, cold, and difficult to reach. The more you try to reconnect, the further they seem to drift away. If you've experienced this, you're not alone. Many people find themselves trapped in a painful cycle with someone who has avoidant tendencies. But what if the solution isn't chasing harder? What if the secret is actually doing less, not more? Today we're going to explore a powerful concept known as the soft contact method and why it can completely change the dynamic between you and an avoidant person. Before we begin, it's important to understand something. Avoidant individuals are not necessarily uncaring or heartless. In many cases, they feel emotions deeply. The difference is that intimacy can trigger discomfort, fear, or a strong desire for independence. When relationships become emotionally intense, their instinct is often to create distance. Unfortunately, most people respond to this distance by increasing pressure. They text more often, demand explanations, seek reassurance, or try to force conversations. While these reactions are understandable, they often produce the exact opposite result. The soft contact method works because it removes pressure from the equation. Instead of chasing, you create space. Instead of demanding answers, you communicate calmly and confidently. Instead of making the avoidant feel trapped, you make them feel safe. And when emotional safety returns, something remarkable begins to happen. The walls they built start to lower on their own. The person who seemed determined to stay away may slowly begin moving back toward you. Throughout this speech, you'll discover why this method is so effective and how it can help transform not only your relationship, but also your own emotional strength and confidence. One of the most confusing experiences in a relationship is watching someone suddenly become distant when everything seemed to be going well. Many people assume that if an avoidant person pulls away, it means they no longer care, have lost interest, or never had genuine feelings in the first place. However, avoidant psychology often works very differently. The reality is that many avoidant individuals pull away not because they lack emotions, but because emotions become overwhelming for them. When a relationship starts becoming more serious, more intimate, or more emotionally demanding, it can trigger fears that operate beneath their conscious awareness. For an avoidant person, closeness can feel both comforting and threatening at the same time. They may enjoy spending time with someone, appreciate the connection, and genuinely care about the relationship. Yet, as emotional intimacy grows, they can begin to feel vulnerable. Vulnerability requires trust, openness, and dependence on another person to some degree. For someone with avoidant tendencies, these experiences may create discomfort because they often value independence and self-reliance above almost everything else. When emotional pressure begins to build, their natural response is often to create distance. Instead of expressing what they are feeling, they may withdraw, become less communicative, or suddenly focus on work, hobbies, or personal responsibilities. From the outside, this behavior can appear cold or confusing. Their partner may wonder why they are acting differently or why they refuse to discuss the issue openly. But for the avoidant individual, pulling away feels safer than confronting emotions they do not fully understand or know how to manage. Another reason avoidants struggle with communication is that many have learned throughout their lives to suppress difficult emotions rather than express them. They may fear conflict, rejection, criticism, or losing control of their independence. As a result, when relationship problems arise, they often retreat inward instead of talking through the situation. Silence becomes a form of protection. Understanding this pattern is extremely important because it changes how you interpret their behavior. Instead of viewing every withdrawal as proof that the relationship is over, you begin to recognize it as a coping mechanism. This does not excuse unhealthy behavior, but it helps explain why avoidants often pull away rather than communicate. The more you understand their internal struggle, the less likely you are to react emotionally. And that understanding becomes the foundation for responding in a way that encourages connection instead of pushing them further away. When someone you care about starts pulling away, the natural instinct is usually to move closer. Most people respond to distance with more effort, more communication, and more attempts to reconnect. They send multiple messages, ask for explanations, request reassurance, or try to convince the other person to stay. While these reactions come from a place of love, fear, and concern, they often become the biggest mistake people make when dealing with an avoidant individual. What feels like an attempt to save the relationship can actually accelerate the emotional withdrawal. An avoidant person tends to be highly sensitive to pressure, even when that pressure is unintentional. When they begin feeling overwhelmed, they seek space to regain a sense of control and emotional balance. If their partner responds by increasing demands for attention or answers, the avoidant often interprets it as a threat to their independence. The more pressure they feel, the stronger their desire becomes to escape the situation. This creates a frustrating cycle where one person pursues harder while the other retreats further away. Many people believe that if they can just explain their feelings clearly enough, the avoidant will suddenly understand and come back. They may write long, emotional messages, repeatedly ask where the relationship stands, or constantly check for signs of interest. Unfortunately, this approach rarely produces the desired outcome. Instead of creating closeness, it can make the avoidant feel cornered. When someone feels trapped emotionally, their defenses rise. Communication decreases, responses become shorter, and emotional distance grows even wider. Another common mistake is making the avoidant responsible for relieving anxiety. When fear of losing the relationship takes over, people often look to the other person for constant reassurance. They want immediate responses, clear commitments, and guarantees about the future. But avoidants are often uncomfortable providing that level of emotional reassurance, especially during periods when they are already feeling overwhelmed. The result is more frustration on both sides. What many people fail to realize is that desperation is often felt even when it is not spoken aloud. An avoidant can sense when someone is trying to force a connection, and that pressure can trigger their instinct to pull away even faster. Confidence, patience, and emotional stability are usually far more effective than pursuit. The moment you stop chasing and start managing your own emotions, the entire dynamic begins to shift. You are no longer feeding the cycle of pressure and withdrawal. Instead, you create an environment where the avoidant can breathe, think, and process their feelings without feeling controlled. Ironically, it is often when the pursuit stops that genuine curiosity and attraction have room to return. The soft contact method is often misunderstood because many people assume it means ignoring someone, playing games, or pretending not to care. In reality, it is none of those things. The soft contact method is a balanced approach that allows communication to remain open while removing the pressure that often causes avoidant individuals to withdraw. It is based on the idea that connection grows best when it feels safe, voluntary, and free from emotional force. Rather than trying to pull someone back into a relationship, you create an environment where they feel comfortable moving toward you on their own. At its core, the soft contact method is about communicating with calm confidence. Instead of sending multiple messages, demanding answers, or constantly checking where you stand, you keep interactions light, respectful, and pressure-free. When you do reach out, your messages are friendly and genuine, rather than emotionally loaded. You are not using communication as a way to extract reassurance or force commitment. You are simply maintaining a healthy connection without expectations attached to every interaction. One of the most powerful aspects of this method is that it gives both people room to breathe. Avoidant individuals often become overwhelmed when they feel that every conversation carries emotional weight or requires an immediate response. The soft contact method removes that burden. It allows communication to feel natural rather than demanding. Instead of feeling trapped, the avoidant begins to experience interactions as safe and manageable. This approach also requires emotional discipline. Many people struggle with the urge to constantly seek validation when someone becomes distant. They want proof that the relationship still matters. They want certainty about the future. The soft contact method teaches you to resist those impulses. Rather than reacting from fear, you respond from confidence. You trust that genuine connections cannot be forced and that pressure rarely produces lasting results. Another important element is consistency. Soft contact is not a one-time strategy or a trick designed to manipulate someone into returning. It is a mindset. You remain kind, respectful, and emotionally stable, whether the avoidant responds immediately or takes time to reconnect. Your behavior is no longer driven by anxiety, but by self-respect and emotional maturity. Over time, this change in energy can have a profound effect. The avoidant begins to notice the absence of pressure. Conversations become easier. Defenses start to lower. They no longer feel as though every interaction is leading toward confrontation or emotional demands. Instead, they experience a connection that feels calm and safe. That sense of safety is often the very thing they need in order to open up, reconnect, and gradually move closer again without feeling forced or controlled. One of the most important things to understand about avoidant psychology is that emotional safety is often more attractive to an avoidant person than emotional intensity. Many people assume that grand gestures, emotional speeches, constant reassurance, or relentless efforts to prove love will bring an avoidant closer. While these actions may work for some personalities, they can have the opposite effect on someone who values independence and fears emotional overwhelm. For an avoidant, attraction often grows when they feel safe rather than pressured. Emotional safety means creating an environment where a person does not feel judged, controlled, criticized, or forced into decisions before they are ready. When an avoidant senses pressure, even if it comes from good intentions, their defenses naturally activate. They may become distant, less responsive, or emotionally unavailable. This reaction is not always a sign that they have stopped caring. More often, it is a protective response designed to help them regain a sense of control over their emotions and personal space. The challenge is that many people react to this withdrawal with frustration or fear. They may demand answers, push for commitment, or express disappointment in ways that make the avoidant feel even more trapped. As tension increases, the avoidant often becomes more determined to create distance. The relationship enters a cycle where one person seeks more closeness while the other seeks more space. When emotional safety is restored, however, the dynamic begins to change. An avoidant who feels accepted rather than pressured starts to lower their guard. They no longer need to spend as much energy protecting themselves from perceived demands. Conversations become easier. Trust begins to grow naturally. The relationship feels less like an obligation and more like a choice. This is why calm communication is so powerful. When you respond with patience instead of panic, understanding instead of criticism, and confidence instead of desperation, you send a message that the relationship is a safe place. You show that you respect their need for space without abandoning your own self-worth. That balance creates an atmosphere where genuine connection can develop. Interestingly, emotional safety often increases attraction because it allows the avoidant to experience positive emotions without feeling trapped by them. They can miss you without feeling guilty. They can think about you without feeling pressured to make immediate decisions. They can reconnect because they want to, not because they feel forced to. Over time, this sense of freedom and safety can become deeply attractive. The avoidant begins associating you with peace rather than pressure. Instead of viewing the relationship as something that threatens their independence, they start seeing it as a source of comfort and stability. That shift is often where real emotional reconnection begins, and it is one of the most powerful reasons the soft contact method can be so effective. One of the hardest lessons to learn when dealing with an avoidant person is that the more you focus on trying to change them, the more powerless you often become. Many people spend countless hours analyzing messages, replaying conversations, searching for signs, and wondering what they can do to make the other person come back. Their happiness becomes tied to someone else's actions. Unfortunately, this mindset usually creates anxiety, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. The real turning point happens when you shift your focus away from controlling the relationship and begin investing in yourself instead. Patience is a crucial part of this process. In a world where instant responses and immediate gratification have become normal, waiting can feel uncomfortable. When an avoidant pulls away, the urge to fix everything right away is strong. You may want answers immediately. You may want reassurance that the relationship still matters. But genuine emotional change rarely happens under pressure. People often need time to process their feelings, especially avoidant individuals who tend to handle emotions internally. Patience allows space for that process to unfold naturally. At the same time, patience does not mean sitting around waiting for someone to make a decision. It means continuing to move forward with your own life. This is where self-improvement becomes incredibly powerful. Instead of spending all your energy worrying about the relationship, you begin investing in your personal growth. You focus on your health, your goals, your career, your friendships, and your passions. You build a life that feels meaningful regardless of what happens with the relationship. This shift creates something important: confidence. True confidence does not come from knowing someone wants you. It comes from knowing that you will be okay either way. When you stop relying on another person for your sense of worth, you become emotionally stronger and more attractive. People are naturally drawn to those who have purpose, self-respect, and emotional stability. Ironically, self-improvement often has a powerful effect on avoidant individuals. When they see that you are no longer chasing, pleading, or desperately seeking validation, the dynamic changes. The pressure disappears. Instead of seeing someone who is focused entirely on them, they see someone who is growing, thriving, and living a fulfilling life. That can spark curiosity, admiration, and renewed attraction. Most importantly, self-improvement benefits you regardless of the outcome. Whether the avoidant returns or not, you become a stronger version of yourself. You develop resilience, independence, and a deeper understanding of your own value. And when you truly recognize your worth, you stop seeing yourself as someone waiting to be chosen. You become someone who chooses the kind of relationships that deserve your time, energy, and emotional investment. One of the biggest questions people ask after creating space and using the soft contact method is how they can tell whether an avoidant person is starting to miss them. Because avoidants are often less expressive with their emotions, the signs are not always obvious. They may not suddenly send long emotional messages or openly admit that they have been thinking about you. In fact, many avoidant individuals continue to appear calm and independent, even when they are experiencing strong emotions internally. This is why it is important to pay attention to behavior, rather than relying solely on words. One of the first signs is renewed curiosity. An avoidant who has begun missing you may start finding small reasons to reconnect. They might react to your social media activity, send a casual message, ask a simple question, or bring up a shared memory. These interactions may seem minor on the surface, but they often indicate that you are occupying space in their thoughts. Instead of avoiding contact, they are looking for low-pressure ways to reestablish a connection. Another common sign is increased responsiveness. When avoidants feel overwhelmed, communication often becomes delayed, brief, or inconsistent. As they begin missing you, Their responses may become more frequent and engaged. They might ask follow-up questions, show genuine interest in your life, or keep conversations going longer than usual. These small changes often reveal a growing level of emotional comfort. You may also notice that they become more open than before. Avoidants typically guard their inner world carefully. When they start sharing personal thoughts, discussing challenges, or expressing feelings they would normally keep private, it often means their trust is increasing. Emotional openness is a significant step for someone who is accustomed to protecting themselves through distance. Another powerful sign is when they begin referencing the future. They may mention activities you could do together, bring up plans, or talk about experiences they would like to share. Even subtle comments about future possibilities can signal that they are beginning to see you as part of their life again. Perhaps the most important sign is consistency. Anyone can send a random message out of boredom or loneliness. What truly matters is whether the effort continues over time. When an avoidant repeatedly reaches out, maintains communication, and shows a genuine desire to stay connected, it often reflects deeper emotional investment. However, it is important not to become obsessed with searching for signs. The purpose of the soft contact method is not to monitor every action or decode every message. The real goal is to create a healthier dynamic while maintaining your own emotional balance. When you focus on your growth and allow the relationship to develop naturally, you become less dependent on constant reassurance. And if an avoidant begins missing you, their actions will usually reveal it without you having to force anything. Genuine interest has a way of making itself known when given the space to grow.